vlog. This will kind of be a reading vlog focused on my reading life, my life as a book lover, but it's gonna have a bit of a spin. Basically, I've realized that I have a bit of a problem in terms of my reading life, but I do think I found a solution, or at least part of a solution, and it's something I want to explore. So that's what this vlog is going to be about. I will talk about my reading problem later. Right now, we're going to jump straight to the beginning of the solution, I hope, which is going shopping for some manga. So at the beginning of this year, I did pick myself up a Kindle. I haven't had a Kindle in a long time, and I actually had a bit of trouble falling in love with it. But basically, I have read a little bit of manga on here. I did end up reading the sample of Waiting for Spring, and I read 2 volumes last night, so that was kind of fun. And I do like reading manga on the Kindle. I think that's going to be something I continue to do. But the reason I want to go shopping is to just kind of have a look, because I found, for me, with this getting into manga thing, I haven't really known when to start. I don't know, I just want to get an idea. So this is the beginning of my manga journey. Let's go. Friends, we are back, and I did buy 2 books, which I'm excited about and we will talk about in a minute. But I thought now would be a good time to just sit down and talk you through kind of like why I want to do this. I mean, manga is something I've kind of always had an idea that I would like to get into, but it just seemed like such a big world. I kind of didn't really know where to start. Anyway, so the reason I'm doing this now is primarily because I am not reading as much as I want to. I've kind of narrowed it down to a few reasons, I suppose. One is kind of adjusting how I read now that I run a book club. Now, the Blossom Book Club on my Discord is one of my favorite things. I love reading books along with my patrons. At the moment, we're reading Braiding Sweetgrass, and I've just started. Basically, I haven't found my groove with my own reading along with the book club. On top of that, I also started back at uni, and obviously with uni there's a lot of reading, so it's a combination of those 2 things and just a genuine interest in manga, I suppose, that I've decided that I feel like manga could fit into my reading life quite well. You can certainly read a whole volume in one sitting or one afternoon or one day, which I do feel like gives me a bit more flexibility with the book club book, kind of having that going and then just kind of taking the afternoon off to read something else. That still feels like I've finished something as opposed to kind of having several books going at once. Also, because of the nature of manga, I think it'll just be something a bit different to read. Rather than just a bunch of lines on a page like I'm going to be doing at uni. So all of this is not to say that I don't want to read books anymore. That's not the point. It's more just, I think, incorporating manga into what I already read, I think will encourage me to read more often. And of course to explore something a bit new, which is exciting. So I'm not sure if all of that made sense. I hope you kind of get what I mean. But now let's have a look at the 2 that I did get today. The first is Fullmetal Alchemist, which is kind of like pretty well known as one of the most popular manga as far as I'm aware. Additionally, the reason I did want to get this is because I couldn't find it on Kindle. So I think this would be something I'd prefer to read on Kindle, especially because there's so many volumes. But at least when I checked last night, I couldn't find it. So I got me the hard copy instead. And then at Dimmix, I found this. and it's sealed. So this definitely seems much more adult. I very briefly looked at the listing of this on Amazon. I got the idea that this is kind of maybe semi-autobiographical, which sounds fun, and certainly not the sort of thing that I think a lot of us, when we think of manga, we think more of the Fullmetal Alchemist, the Narutos, the Bleach, not so much something like this. So that's kind of why I was really interested. But I've also kind of started realizing that manga's expensive. Like, it feels cheap when you're getting it, like, you know, $15 for a book. Not saying they're not worth it, but just kind of starting to realize that this new hobby of mine might actually be a bit more expensive than I first thought. I'm starting to wonder if maybe my library might have some manga. Now, I have a confession to make. I haven't been to my library in years because I used to use it a lot before and during my early hospital admissions. When we kind of first moved here, I just spent so much time in hospital and was very busy and ended up with some late fees. I don't really remember how or why, but I think they ended up cancelling my membership. So I've never been back, and that's always made me a bit sad. So maybe we should go and talk to them. I don't know. Would they give me a second chance? I'm not sure. Trip to the library was really successful. I'm feeling really good. I went and spoke to one of the librarians and kind of explained. He was really, really nice. So I paid a $15 fine. I got a new library card and I got 3 books. They did have a reasonable size manga section, but it was very much like children, teens manga. There was no, and it was in the kids section of the library. There was very, very few volume 1s. I suppose being a library, a lot of the time those are the ones that are checked out. So I did pick up 3 books, which I think is more than enough for now anyway. I don't really know much about any of them. Now, it is kind of getting late in the afternoon. I do still want to spend a bit of time studying, but I'm really in the mood for a bit of reading. So I think we will read some manga. Perhaps maybe we'll have a bit of a go at Fullmetal Alchemist. Good evening. It is 7:20-ish, and I have spent pretty much all of this evening reading Fullmetal Alchemist. It's so good. I like it a lot. So this book that we bought today is 3 volumes in 1, and this evening I finished the first 2. So I still have 1 to go, and I was tempted to just keep reading, but I haven't actually done really much study at all today. So I'm going to study for 2 hours. I feel like I'll give myself that. 2 hours of study, and then as like my present to myself, I'll finish off that final volume tonight. Also, I know that I've read this many pages because it's manga, right? Like, I understand that you get through more pages when a lot of the page is artwork instead of words, but it is so satisfying to have read that much in an afternoon. I don't know, and like the idea that I'm probably gonna finish this today, like, it's just, it is satisfying. I can't pretend it's not. But no more blabbering, let's get stuck into some study. I'm feeling so pretty. productive. Tick, 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 tick. It's all done. I mean, I have other things to do, but these are all done. Yeah. Good morning, friends. I have to be quick because I need to catch the tram. We're heading into the city today. I am working, but this morning I wanted to go manga shopping. So there are a couple of shops I've looked up that seem to stock some manga in the city near where I work. But before we head off, I wanted to talk about some of what I've been reading. Bakuman, I'm torn on this one, and it's basically about two young boys who want to become famous, successful manga artists. I quite like that premise, I quite like the story, but these boys are misogynistic as hell and it's annoying me. So I'm not quite sure how I feel about that. I mean, I don't feel good about it. I don't think I'm going to read any more of, get any more volumes, but I do like the story. I think it's fun. And then we've got Kimi Todoke, From Me to You. I read 2 chapters of this and I was so bored. It's basically about this girl. She kind of, I think, looks like a horror movie character, maybe The Grudge or something. And so people are scared of her and she's creepy, but the popular guy at school likes her and is nice to her. But he's nice to everybody, but she just kind of puts him up on this pedestal because he's not horrible to her. And I only read 2 chapters and already it's repetitive. I know people love that story, but I was just really bored, so I stopped reading. Last night I did read 2 more volumes of Waiting for Spring. I'm not crazy in love with that story, but it is quite cute. But for now, let's head off to the city and see what we can find. I have a check-in for you. I have already read 2 of the manga that we bought yesterday, and I actually didn't realize that they were by the same author. Both are by Inio Asano. I read Goodnight Punpun first and I loved it. It's so strange, it's really bizarre, a little dark, but really, really, really funny. And then last night and this morning I read A Girl on the Shore by the same author. This one was not funny like Punpun, but it was dark in a different way. It was a very small story in terms of it really is just about this girl, the main character, and a boy and their relationship, but it's not really it's a very unhealthy one. It is a little uncomfortable in the sense that they're 15 and it's quite graphic in terms of their sexual relationship, but it's not gratuitous. In fact, it's not gratifying, certainly not for the reader. I don't think for the characters either, and I think that's kind of the point. But it certainly gave me some feels, and I want to read more by this author. So the other one I picked up yesterday, I didn't really kind of give you guys a show and tell yesterday, is Pink by Kyoko Okazaki. And there was another one of hers there, I think it was called Helter Skelter, and I was kind of tossing up between the two, but the back of this says Love and Capitalism, and it has a crocodile with sun-like glasses. So that kind of sold me. I'm quite looking forward to this one. I think it'll be fun and interesting. And then I still have, oh my God, this is by the same author too. I didn't realize, I just realized now, is by that same author, Inio Asano. So I've got 3 accidentally, all from the same author. I'll also note that I got a message from my library today saying that the 6 volumes of Fullmetal Alchemist that I've reserved have come in. So we are going to head off and pick those up. I also got a notification that the post office has some mail for me to pick up, and I think that's manga too. So it's going to be another day full of manga, and I've decided that I'm ready to take back the library books that we did pick up. Like I said, I did read Bakuman. I didn't... the more I think about it, the less I like it. I like the idea of reading a manga about manga. I just really don't like the characters. I don't like the... I don't know. Basically, I've read some really great mangas that I'm a lot more interested in continuing to read, and that's not up there on that list. I did start Kimi Todoke. I was really bored, did not enjoy it at all, so I just have more stuff that I want to read. And then I kind of the same with Arata the Legend. But that is enough blabbering. Let's head off, because it is going to rain this afternoon and I want to get back before it does. Have 6 volumes of Fullmetal Alchemist. Here they all are, 4 to 10. I'm very excited. The first 3 were so good. And we have 2 parcels. Oh yes, so we've got Children of the Whales, which is one I saw at Dimmicks on our first shopping trip and wasn't really sure about, but then couldn't get out of my head. So I picked this one up. This one reads, in an endless sea of sand drifts the mud whale, a floating island city of clay and magic. In its chambers, a small community clings to survival, cut off from its own history by the shadows of the past. Next, we have I Hear a Sunspot. This was one of the ones that I saw people recommending quite a lot on YouTube. Because of a hearing disability, Kohei is often misunderstood by others and has trouble integrating into life on campus, so he learns to keep his distance. That is, until he meets the outspoken and cheerful Taichi. More than friends, less than lovers, their relationship changes Kohei forever. And then our next parcel... this will be a fun one, I think. Astra, Lost in Space. This one says, in the year 2063, interstellar space travel has become the norm. What sort of adventure awaits on the new frontier? It's the first day of planet camp, and Aries Spring couldn't be more excited. So this is like a fun young adventure sort of a thing, I think. Okay, so our 3 brand new titles coming in the mail, and then 6 new Fullmetal Alchemist volumes. So we have plenty of reading to do today. Since we started this video, and I have read an awful lot of manga. Of course, I've spoken about some of these manga a little bit more than others throughout this video, so I thought now we could have a bit of a talk about some of the I don't know, big takeaways that I have from what I have read. Obviously, Fullmetal Alchemist is the thing I have read by far the most of. So we started with the 3-in-1, 1, 2, 3. It was just so bloody fun. Like, the brothers are both just so, I was gonna say likable, but that's not the right word, especially for Ed. He's a bit of a hothead and does not like being called small, but I suppose sincere. They're both really sincere and kind of, even though very, very powerful, they're underdogs in terms of, you know, where they've come from. And even though they have joined the military class traders, they have their particular reasons for it, and you can understand why they do what they do. So it's a really strong story so far, and I have read up to number 8. So I have 9 and 10 still to read. That's all that's at my library though, and I think there's 27 volumes in the series, and I'm not sure that I want to spend that much money on it, but I am really enjoying it. Next, I feel like we should talk about Inio Asano's work, because I accidentally bought 3 different manga from the same creator. So the first one I read was Goodnight Punpun, number 1, and I loved this almost immediately. It's really bizarre and strange, and I don't know what it is about the fact that the character looks like this that just makes it so much funnier. Though I do feel like there is quite a dark underbelly to this story, and I have a sense that it's probably going to get darker as the series continues. I think there's 7 volumes. I've bought the next 2. The next Inio Asano work that I read, I did talk about a little bit. It was Girl on the Shore. I did really like it in terms of, I think it's very atmospheric, it's very moody. It has a very specific story to tell. I will say a trigger warning for this book. It's not explicit, like it's not a scene that we see play out, but our main character, right in the very first pages of the book, we find out that she has been sexually assaulted. And I think that certainly, it has to color our understanding of her intentions and why she does what she does. And I think she's really lost, just like a lot of the characters in this book. And then the third work of Inio Asano I read was Downfall. And this was probably the most challenging, actually. You'd think that 15-year-olds having explicit sex would be the most challenging, but no, this one was for me. It is semi-autobiographical, and I suppose my uncomfortability with it is I don't know how autobiographical it is. And it is about a man, presumably based on the author, who has just wrapped up a very, very successful manga series and is kind of not really sure what to do next, is falling out of love, or is very much out of love with manga and the world of manga, and is also going through a marriage breakup. And there are quite a lot of female characters in this, but they are all presented in really quite negative ways. He's an asshole, a total asshole, but we are kind of positioned to feel somewhat sympathetic for him. I really want to believe that this is all self-aware and intentional, and that these women, although this main character kind of sees them as a big part of his problem, that he's kind of used and abused them just as much, or if not more, than they've done to him. So I really enjoyed it. The art in Inio Asano's works are just, it's incredible. It's really, really moving, very expressive, a lot more realistic than a lot of the other art in some of these other manga. So Inio Asano, as difficult as I found a lot of his work, I still loved it. What should we talk about next? Let's talk about something fun. Astra Lost in Space. I only read volume 1 of this and I loved it. This is so funny and so fun. It's basically a school excursion gone wrong, except it's in space and it's in the future. Why is Totoro upside down? That's sad. There we go. That's better. So I loved this. I flew through it, and as soon as I finished, I like squealed, and I definitely want to pick up more. I don't feel like desperate to go out and get it right now. I think I'm just going to keep an eye out. Next time I see it in the shop, I'm going to pick up number 2 and 3 probably. I think there's 7 in this series and I really liked it. It was a good time. Next is one I enjoyed less. It was I Hear the Sunspot. This was about a high school boy who has a hearing disability and a friend that he makes, and there's kind of a bit of romantic tension between the two. And it was fine. It was lovely enough. I just thought it was a bit boring. I don't think this is one I'm going to want to continue. Next, let's talk about Pink. Now, this is by Kyoko Okazaki. And this was the one that I mentioned. There was a couple by the same author that I was kind of tossing up between. This one I picked because of the back, more or less, a crocodile with sunglasses, and I liked it, but I did not love this. I'd say I'd give it 3 out of 5 stars. It's about this girl who's a sex worker, and I think there's some interesting juxtapositions between her and her stepmother maid. Overall, the story for me was a little less interesting. I didn't grow to really care about this character. I didn't really grow to care about really any of the characters. But I suppose I'm glad it's a one-shot and it wasn't a series, because if it were a series, I don't think I'd be buying number 2. I enjoyed it well enough though. Next, I want to talk about Children of the Whales, which was a series that I saw in a couple of the bookshops but didn't pick up while I was out, but then couldn't get it out of my mind, so ordered it online. I ordered the first one and flew through it, and this is one of my favorite that I read this week. It's very atmospheric, and I have to say, I do like the characters, but it's the world building and the plot that has really engaged me. And so far, it's like kind of shocked me quite a bit. Like whenever I think I know where it's going, it goes in a different direction. And I thought it was going to be quite soft. Like this artwork's so beautiful. I mean, obviously it looks like these characters look a little sad on the front too, but I didn't expect it to be quite as intense and full on as some of the scenes are. And the magic in this is very interesting, and how it plays with emotion, and the kind of culture or the system of society that exists on the mud whale is also very interesting. So it is that world building and the kind of the story around the mud whale, its history, and also what's happening now and what might happen in the coming volumes that just, I'm very, very invested in this already. And I love this so much that I went out and managed to find number 2 at the bookshop, and I've ordered 3, 4, and 5, which should be arriving in the next week too. And the last book I want to talk about is Orange. When I've watched recommendation videos on YouTube, so many people have mentioned this one, and I kind of had a good sense that this is going to be something that I really liked. It's a fairly short manga. It comes in this edition with 1 more, and I've just literally arrived today, number 2, so that's what I'm going to be reading tonight. But already, so many feels. It's basically a story about some friends in high school, and the main character, she receives a note, a letter from her future self. And at first she kind of doesn't believe it, she thinks it's a bit of a joke or whatever, but as things start to like happen that the letter says will happen, she believes it more and more. And basically her future self tells her that one of her friends is going to die, and the letter is intended to tell her what to do in order to save him. And so it's basically her navigating life as a high schooler, as a young girl, kind of discovering love and romance, but also constantly trying to think about what decisions are right and wrong to try and save her friend. And I suppose I liked this so much because a lot of the high schooly sort of ones that I've read, like Kimi, Todoke, or whatever that one was, and Waiting for Spring, I like those, but I kind of get a bit bored with the fact that all of the tension in the story, like the whole thing that drives the plot forward, is just like the will they won't they romancy sort of stuff. And I don't mind a bit of that. Like Waiting for Spring is fun, but I get a bit bored of it, I suppose. Whereas this, like there still is a little bit of high school romance, but there's still a really interesting plot with a lot of emotional weight that drives us forward. And it's beautiful. I've already teared up a few times, and so I'm like obsessed with this and really want to get stuck into number 2, but I'm also like putting it off and want to like savor it and wait, and I'm not sure how much I want to cry tonight. So in terms of what I've loved this week, I think definitely Orange is a massive success for me. Goodnight Punpun is definitely really, really up there, and I am so excited that the second one arrived today. I'm gonna get stuck into that. And Children of the Whales was probably the one that surprised me the most, and I am obsessed with this series too. So clearly this manga journey this week has been amazing for my reading levels. On my days off, I've spent like at least 2 of them almost the whole day reading, and then I found myself in the evening, even if it's late, even if it's 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night even, if I'm not doing anything for the rest of the evening, I'll often pick up one of these volumes because it only takes 45 minutes to an hour to read. And so then I read another, another manga. I think the accessibility of them in terms of how quickly and easy they are to read is really good for my motivation levels. And then also just how engaging these stories are and how many amazing stories I've got to kind of step into and experience in such a short amount of time is so cool. So I am 100% on the manga train. This is going to be something that I continue to do. I know this is really unusual for my channel. I know that probably most of you are not going to watch this, and that's okay. I've spent so long making and editing this video though, so I do hope those of you who've watched this have enjoyed it. And I'm so glad we did this when we did, because I feel like it's a combination of uni and having to read, some quite dense material, and then also the anxiety of what's going on in the world at the moment has meant that my concentration levels aren't great. This often happens to me when my anxiety is a little on the higher end. I find it hard to concentrate on a book. And so I feel like manga being a little bit more accessible in terms of, like the length of something, and also having the imagery to kind of add a different level of interest, has helped me keep reading more, which makes me really happy. So even though I'm struggling to read other books that I wish I was reading, I still am getting through some amazing stories, which makes me really happy. Of course, before we go, I have to say a massive thank you to everyone over on my Patreon for all of your support. I always appreciate it so, so much. And a massive extra big super thank you to Tracy Timmerman, Laurie, Lynette Brown, The Hales K, and Biffy Rose for your additional above and beyond amazing support. Thank you so much. I hope you are all staying well. I hope this video that's probably going to be very long gives you a bit of a distraction if you're having to self-quarantine or self-isolate. I hope you're okay, and I will talk to you all again very soon. So much love. Bye.